Hey guys, in this video I will show you how to add a tooltip to your React applications. For those of you who don't know what exactly are tooltips, I'll give some explanation on that and then we will start implementing the tooltips in a React application. So first of all, let's have a look at what exactly are tooltips. So if I go to Google and if I look at this Google website. So here, if I go to any of the icon and hover over it, a little pop-up appears which says Google Apps. So this pop-up is basically a tooltip which makes your website more interactive and more interesting to visit for the users. If I go over it, it will give me a little pop-up which will have some details about the Google account. If I search something and go to the results page, here also you'll be able to find many tooltips. For example, if I hover over this button, it says little pop-up which says clear. This is to clear the search, and if I go over it, it says search by voice. So all these pop-ups are basically the tooltips which makes our websites or web applications look much more interactive and interesting to the users. If I go over this icon, it says settings. I go over this, it says Google Maps. So I hope you are getting an idea of what exactly are tooltips. They give basically tooltips give some kind of information to the user about your website. For example, if somebody is not able to figure out what's the meaning of this icon, so it says it's settings. I go over it, it's apps. I click on it, it opens all the Google apps. So that kind of functionality we can add to our website, our React application, and we will have a look at it how to add this functionality. Before that, let me give you some more examples. For example, I'm using Atom text editor here to write my code, my React application. If I observe this text editor, if I go to any of the icons on this, it says new terminal. So this is also a kind of tooltip. If I go over this, it's a Windows PowerShell. It's a close button. So it gives some kind of some tooltips are attached to each of the icon even in the text editor. So that kind of functionality we will learn how to add this to our web application to make it more interesting. So as of now, I have already pre-built a simple web application which is running on my localhost 3000, and it looks like this. So this application is basically very simple. It has only two buttons, plus and minus, add and subtract. So if I click on add, it increases the count for me, and if I click on subtract, it decreases the count for me. So in this application, what I need to do is I will be trying to add a tooltip just like we have seen on the Google. If you hover over any icon, it gives some information about that icon. So here we have two buttons. So what I want to do is, if somebody go over this button, it should give some information about this button, that it's a button to add and it's a button to subtract the count. So that kind of functionality we will be implementing in our. So if you look at this code, it's a very simple code where we have two buttons, plus and minus. So these are the two buttons, and we need to add tooltip to these two buttons, and in between these buttons we have count, and that's what we see on the screen. We have two buttons and then we have a count. So maybe we can add tooltip to all these three items. If I go over it, it should say it's a add button. If I go over it, it should say it's a subtract button. If I go over it, it should tell me that it's a count. So in order to implement the tooltips in this application, we'll be using Material UI. So for that, first step we need to do is to install Material UI, and to install that we'll just Google Material UI install, and on the first link, if we go, we will find the link how to install Material UI. So if you are using npm, you can run this command. I'm using yarn, so I'll be running this command to install Material UI. So I'll copy this command and go to my application, paste it and run it. So we'll be waiting until the installation of the Material UI is complete, and then we will add the tooltips. So now the installation of Material UI has been completed. Let's start adding some tooltips to our application to make it a little more interesting. So in order to add tooltip, what we need to do is, first of all, we need to import some items. We will import tooltip from Material UI core. So we'll be importing the tooltip, and let's save just to check if there are no errors here. So now I have successfully imported the tooltip from Material UI. What I need to do is I need to add the tooltip to all these three items. One item is a button, which is a plus button. Another item is this div, which is count, and the third item is this button. So in order to add tooltip to any of the component in React, what we need to do is we need to enclose that component within this tooltip, which we have just imported from Material UI. So if I enclose this in a tooltip, and I can give some title here. So to this I'll give a title of add, because this is a plus sign and it's an add button. So I'll give a title add, and let's save this. So now if I go back to my application, if I go over it, it gives me a little pop-up below. You can see it says add. So this is the way we add the tooltips in our React application. Now let's add the tooltips to these two components as well. So the process of doing that is same. We need to enclose the second div also within this tooltip, but here we'll give a different title. We'll say it's a count, and again we will do this for the third button we have, and here we'll give a different title, and this is a subtract button. So if I save it and go to my application, if I go over it, it says add. If I go over it, it says count, and it says subtract. So this is the way we add the tooltips to our application. It's a very interesting feature. So I think you should be using tooltips in your application frequently. So the next thing what we need to do is we can even change the shape of this tooltip. As of now, the tooltip is appearing in the form of rectangle below these items. So let's try some more interesting things here and try to change the shape of this tooltip. So what I'll do here is on the tooltips, I'll add a simple keyword which is arrow. So let me add it to all the three tooltips that we have added, and let me save it. So now if I go over it, you can see now it's not in the form of rectangle, it's a little arrow is appearing at the top of the rectangle. So this shape looks even more interesting than the previous one. So I hope you found this feature interesting and useful for your applications. And one more thing I would like to highlight here is that if you want to check the documentation of Material UI about the different kind of tooltips which are available and provided by Material UI, you can simply go to Google, go to Material UI tooltip, and the first link that opens. So here it will give you all the documentation on how to add a different kind of tooltips. So here is the tooltip. So here you will find a very different kind of tooltips and some more interesting things you can add on that. For example, if I go over it, it's a much wider tooltip, so you can increase the width of the tooltip. Or if I go over it again, there are transitions also you can add to the tooltip. For example, if I go over this, the tooltip grows. If I go over it, it fades. After I remove my mouse from this, it fades slowly. So here it zooms. So these kind of transitions also you will be able to apply by using this documentation. But I just wanted to give you a general idea on the tooltips. So I hope this video was useful to you. So keep looking on this channel for such interesting videos and interesting features that will improve your design of your website. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.